Wowed by the Quran series with Halimah Kurghali. Assalamu alaikum, Halimah here, and welcome to episode 5 of the Wowed by the Quran series. Subhanallah, Ramadan is passing fast, don't you think? Okay, inshallah. So cracking on, I just wanted to start this episode by quickly sharing with you a personal experience. Now, fairly recently, I was on Facebook and I saw a particular individual there who was posting some things about some injustices that were taking place in Palestine. So if I recall properly, I think it was about some innocent civilians having been killed and some Palestinian children having been illegally arrested, etc. And they even posted some information about some personal injustices that they had also become a victim of. And as I read this post, I have to say that I was somewhat taken back. And to be honest with you, I was a little shocked because the family of this individual themselves had actually partaken in some severe injustices against members of my own family, ironically. And I actually recalled this incident when I was, subhanallah, reading the following verse of the Quran in Juz 5.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا.
O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents or relatives. Whether one is rich or poor, Allah is more worthy of both. So follow not personal inclination, lest you not be just. And if you distort your testimony or refuse to give it, then indeed Allah is ever with what you do acquainted.
Okay, so there is so much injustice going on around the world or within our own communities that we might not be happy about, or we might feel helpless and shifting. So how exactly does this particular verse help to explain where the initial problem lies, and how does it suggest that we can resolve the issue, inshallah? Well, this particular beautiful verse focuses on that upon which all injustices and oppression stems, both large scale and small scale. So it tells us the root of the problem, and that is when our allegiance strays from being with anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that includes when we have an allegiance to our own desire, our own blood, our own group or sect, etc. Now it sounds simple and obvious, I know, but wallahi, brothers and sisters, such actions are far more, rampant and rife than we like to realize or like to admit, to be honest. So many people these days, they preoccupy themselves with the larger injustices of the world, which they have no direct control or they focus on injustices done, against them specifically, like the examples that I spoke about that I witnessed on Facebook. Yet, if such people, subhanAllah, were just to reflect on themselves, their families and their immediate communities, they would often find themselves, whether knowingly or not, perpetrators of crimes against others, or at least in some form, contributing to the perpetration of crimes against other people, subhanAllah, even if that's just being, part of the silent minority, for example. It's for this reason that the verse advises us to look a little closer to home in order to resolve such issues. Okay, so you might be thinking, alright Halimah, it makes sense that perhaps the bigger problem of the world is initially built on the smaller problems closer to home within our families, because essentially, yes, we all do play a role in building society. And okay, I do understand that the cause is probably when our allegiances, towards the justice of Allah stray to allegiances elsewhere. But how can I possibly be part of that, Halimah? Because I pray, I read the Quran, I fast, I observe hijab, mashallah, etc. Well, think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where a close friend, a family member, or a member of a group that you're affiliated with, whether that's a national group, a political group, an Islamic sect, or whatever, and they were involved in a dispute with someone, And without maybe even investigating all the details, you automatically side with your friend because you believe them to be a good person. Or you side with that family member because at the end of the day you're blood and you think that you have a duty to protect them. Or you side with that group member because of a code of loyalty which you've sworn to. Do you know how many times I've seen this happen, subhanAllah? And to be honest, it's really shameful. Where people either don't bother doing sufficient questioning and investigating of a situation before passing a judgment, or they do actually involve themselves in the details and investigating the situation, but they end up washing down the crime of that person, so it's made out that it wasn't so much of a big deal. Or that you even choose to just stay silent against the perpetrator who commits the crime, and you refuse to rectify it, even though you're able to, speak out against it or change the matter, or even in the simplest forms, you're able to show a distaste towards a situation in your heart by kind of supporting the victim, etc., but you choose not to. SubhanAllah, I've even seen with my own eyes and ears the worst of the scenarios, which is where people actually twist the religion, twist the words and the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to justify and to support the perpetrator in their crimes. Wa'a'udhu billah. SubhanAllah, many people do this when, if it was them that was the victim of the same crime, they would be absolutely infuriated by the injustice. They wouldn't accept it. They would fight against it, and they'd expect and call on everyone to stand witness and to come to their assistance and help, and they try to seek the justice through the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etc. And this is a really sad state of affairs, because here the question is, where is the true iman? Where is the true fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is why in this beautiful verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He directs us to how we can correct and change this for the better. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He calls out to the believer in this verse, those who have faith, and He tells them to stand up firmly in upholding justice even against ourselves first and foremost. So that's to hold ourselves accountable and to take consequence of any sin that we might commit and the crimes we might perpetrate against other people, not to ignore them or to deny them or wash them down just because, we want to follow our own desires or what's easy or whatever's in our best interest. Because remember, we might think we're doing what's in our best interest, but in reality, by committing that injustice, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made injustice impermissible for Him and for us, and by defying what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered, we're actually just doing injustice to ourselves, because we're going to be denying ourselves in the future of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings and a place in His paradise. So Allah then mentions a second step that we can take, and that is for us to stand out firmly for justice even against our parents and kinfolk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse, He's actually calling us to those individuals who we would usually associate positions of respect and obedience, pressure or influence with, whether they be of blood or any type of affiliation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us that again, that our allegiance towards Him is first and foremost before any other people. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions whether they be rich or poor, to indicate that we should treat injustice as injustice regardless of who that criminal or that victim may be. So regardless of what social status and influence and benefit they might have to you, because again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He comes first. Allah then ends with the reminder that regardless of what happens, He is aware of everything that takes place. So regardless of whether this is for or against justice, and alhamdulillah, this should, for the victim of any injustice, it should be a reminder to never feel disheartened and forget that the ultimate judgment and justice will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, even if you don't receive it in this world. So let us inshallah take this as a reminder, as an opportunity to reflect now, especially because we view so much injustice on a daily basis via the news and social media. And particularly if we're finding ourselves on the receiving end of any justice, let's think about it for a moment and take ourselves to account. And that's with ourselves in terms of our nafs, our family and affiliations, etc. And often we kind of turn a blind eye to such things, but we have to realize that all rules of justice apply to every one of us. And so we should not be perpetrators of any such actions of injustice, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He turns a blind eye to no one. This verse actually reminds me of the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions that He does not change the condition of a people until they can change the conditions of themselves. And that's because we all contribute to the world, regardless of how insignificant we might think that is. It's all of our duties to uphold the laws of Allah, inshallah. Now, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those, inshallah, who do uphold the justice and who do stand and speak against it and who stand in support and assistance of its victims too. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the honor of the Quran, which brings us from darkness into light, and it helps to show us the solutions to very common and upsetting problems that we might live through, so that we can live the best type of lives, inshallah. My name is Halimah. You've been checked into Quran Rehab's Wild by the Quran series, episode 5. So until tomorrow, inshallah, take care.